Hi, this is Diora Baird Bailey from Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, and you're listening to the Don't Go Out There Horror Podcast.
From 1969 to 1973, the Hewitt family murdered 33 people across the state of Texas. To this day, their killing spree is universally considered one of the most notorious and perversely sadistic crimes in the annals of American history. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. We just want to thank all our fans and listeners. We really appreciate all the support. And before we jump into tonight's film review, I just want to give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgoouthere.com. You can check out all of our interviews, episodes, our online store, and you can check out all of our celebrity intros to the show. It's really cool. And giving a quick shout out to our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for those. Don't go out there on those social medias. You'll find Brian's awesome artwork. Give us a follow and keep up with us. We really appreciate it. We're trying to grow those social medias. And if you have an Apple product, just give us a quick rating on iTunes. We'd really appreciate that too. We've gotten over 120 of them now, so we're definitely growing. We really appreciate it. Tonight is brother Mike's film review, and we're throwing it back to the mid-2000s with Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. I'll just go ahead and give my quick overview real quick. We'll let Mike go last. It's his pick. We reviewed the 2003 remake as our fifth episode. This is, I don't know, our 70th episode now, so we're way better than we were in episode 5. This movie I think is really good. I think it's borderline great, honestly. It's just as good as the first one to me. I'll rewatch both of them. Some nights I'll rewatch both of them in the same night just because I really enjoy both of them. Arlie Ermey, he's horrifying. Leatherface is a big, brutal SOB. And Luda May, she's terrifying. Yeah, I like the backstory that this movie gives, and we'll answer that question more in depth from a fan. Go ahead, Brian. What are your thoughts on this movie?
If you heard my review on the 2003 remake of Chainsaw, if not, you can hear it on don'tgoouthere.com. But I love that remake. It's by far my favorite in the franchise, and as far as remakes go, it's probably top 2 ever, in my opinion. I remember having a lot of anticipation for this one, but I remember also being a little bit disappointed when I did see it, the first time and only time that I had seen this movie before this review. But I didn't remember much of this movie at all. So honestly, when I watched it this week, it was like going in blind on this watch. And I do like this one a little bit better than the first time I watched it. But it definitely still has some problems. It suffers from a lot of the same things that most prequels do, for sure, especially knowing how it's going to end, knowing that the Hewitt family is perfectly fine and alive and well for the next one. So that takes away some of the suspense for me, because you don't worry about this person getting away or killing one of them or anything really happening to them, because they're fine in the next one, welcoming the beautiful Jessica Biel into their home. But I've also said on multiple occasions that sometimes I don't want to know the backstory to the antagonists, and that it's most of the time better left unexplored, in my opinion. But with that said, this movie actually does a good job with that, and it does a lot of other stuff well too, and we'll get into it. But it's like this movie and the 2003 remake are like the Daniel Craig Bond movies. Like, these are the only 2 chainsaw flicks that exist to me, like, at all. The others in the franchise just don't interest me, to be honest, the old ones. But that's also coming from not a hardcore chainsaw fan either. So take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, so part of the reason I picked this movie in the first place was, one, to kind of do a chainsaw film. We've only done one, and I feel like it's pretty significant franchise within the horror community. And this, I'm kind of like you, Brian, where these are probably the 2 that I think of when I think of this franchise. but I do enjoy some of those other ones. This franchise is so weird and wonky. There's so many different timelines. I mean, I know we think Halloween is bad, but this franchise is really bad with timelines. So if we just want to take this Hewitt family timeline instead of the Sawyer family, I like this movie. I picked it because I like it. I don't love it. And upon another rewatch, I saw some things about it that I didn't like, that I didn't remember the first time I ever saw it. So there's some nitpicks here and there, but overall, I think it's a good film. Some of the stuff you touched on, Brian, I agree with. As a general rule of thumb, I'm not a fan of prequels because they're answering questions I didn't ask. And so that's an inherent problem in and of itself to me, where I don't want to know and you're telling me anyways. However, this movie does answer some questions in a good way. Some of the backstory with Sheriff Hoyt is good. Some of and there's some other Leatherface stuff that's good, but this movie kind of suffers in the middle to me with it kind of drags out a little bit in the middle, but the end is really solid. I just felt like this movie it's a solid entry. I'm excited to talk about it though, because again, the reason I picked it was because when I think of Texas Chainsaw, this is the second movie I think of, and that's no knock on the original or anything, but this is kind of the timeline in my head that I think of. And one thing I want to point out is this movie is more gory and gruesome than the 03 remake, which
Oh, hell yes.
I agree with you guys. My favorite Texas Chainsaw is that 03 remake. There's no doubt. But it's up there. If I had to rank this franchise, this one's up there. But this one's more gory, and I think you definitely see the effect of Saw and Hostel and movies like that on this movie, where they had to kind of up the ante a little bit with the gore level, and they definitely do that here. Some stuff I like, some stuff I don't like. So I'm excited to talk about it, man.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I'll jump into more of the prequel talk whenever we answer the fan question, because I think that'll be a good little discussion. Before we jump into tonight's scene by scene, Brother Dustin, he's having some power outage issues, so he may or may not be able to join us later. Whether or not he does, we're going to miss him for these little opening scenes. But y'all ready to get started?
Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right. The film starts with a title, a date, August 1939. There's shots leading into a slaughterhouse. A woman named Sloan cries for her boss. She's about to go into birth, and her water breaks. She falls to the floor. She screams, and she convulses and gives birth and dies on the floor. And I wrote, it's a damn hideous baby. Young Luda May, she's eating meat out of the dumpster, and she hears, a baby crying. She finds the baby wrapped up in paper. She embraces the child and takes him home. And then Charlie Hewitt says, ugliest thing I ever saw. Opening credits with the camera, that flashing noise, and Leatherface finding animals, butchering in the basement, Leatherface stuff. We see a newspaper clipping of the slaughterhouse shutting down and the town is dying. July 1969, the slaughterhouse has been closed by the health department. Leatherface is chopping meat. One of the bosses calls him an oversized retard and tells him it's time to go home. Leatherface Thomas looks at him with an intent to kill, but another supervisor is watching him, and he drops a cleaver and leaves. Now we meet Eric. He's in a nasty hotel pool, and his girlfriend Chrissy. He's just an army vet. They're just chit chatting. And now we meet the other couple we're going to be following, Bailey and Dean. They're in the room, getting kind of kinky. But Dean, he seems really checked out at the moment. He doesn't want to go to war. Eric, he slips a toy ring on Chrissy's finger. They talk about having kids and where do they want to live. And she doesn't want him to leave and go to war again. But then he pulls her into the pool. Bailey tells Dean to run off to Mexico. Now we're back to the slaughterhouse. Leatherface bludgeons that boss with the hammer. He hits his legs, breaking them, and a desk falls on him, and he tries to call the police, but Leatherface kills him with a hit to the head with a hammer. And now we see Leatherface. He's got the chainsaw, and he's walking down the road. All right, that's the first two scenes I got. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I will preface this by saying that I did not watch the unrated version, and I wish I had, kind of. I read the differences in the two, and honestly, I kind of wish I would have seen that, because I can definitely see how it was rated NC-17 to begin with, and they had to cut, I think you said, what was it, 17 scenes or something like that. And if you were disappointed with the gore from the 03 remake, Mike touched on this a little bit, but good Lord, this one more than makes up for it. Hell, the credits are just nasty as hell. But the beginning with the gross birth scene, like, is she the only one there working? It was just weird to me that she was just her when seemed like it was meant to have a lot of people there working, but there was like no explanation. So I don't know. There was enough that it stood out to me there. And going back to this, like, I will definitely give this movie. Look, it's just like the 03 sequel, prequel to this, whatever it is. They do a good job with gross. From the lady taste testing the meat in the dumpster to that birth scene and shit throughout this whole thing. But they do a good job with that tone and atmosphere in that regard, and also that how it matches a lot with the 03 remake as well. And I will say, though, that my biggest complaint about the remake is that it didn't really look or feel like the 70s. So the quote unquote like atmosphere in that regard was off to me. And, it didn't feel like the 50s or the 60s all in this one either. And, they tried with the music and stuff and whatnot, but neither of these movies felt like that time period pieces at all. And I can't believe I'm going to say this, but they were almost like Rob Zombie movies where you can't really put them in any particular time period almost,
Brian.
So,
yeah.
Which, I mean, that can be a good thing and a bad thing sometimes.
Yep.
So it definitely matched, but it almost made this movie a little bit more forgettable. Whereas if it was maybe, looked like it was in the late 60s, it might have, I don't know, maybe it would have stood out a little bit more and not gotten so lost. Two other things. Look, Andrew Benarski is great as Leatherface in this one again. This opening scene with that mask, to me, he looks exactly like Mick Foley's Mankind from WWF. And that kill of the boss, look, that's great use of the camera cuts and soundtrack. It was brutal as fuck. And that's what I want from my Leatherface, just sheer brutality. And this, it set the tone for sure. And lastly, we get introduced to this cast, which shout out to Diora Baird from Wedding Crasher, and she's been in a bunch of other stuff too. But she did the intro to this episode, and we're hoping to have her on the pod soon. By the way, she's a super, super nice and genuine person in real life. But I don't know what it is about this group, but I don't even need a lot of character development because I immediately like this group of four people, and I think all four of them do a great job acting. And honestly, I think Jordana Brewster is even better here than in the Fast and the Furious franchise. And honestly, I had totally forgotten until I looked her up that she was even in The Faculty, which I'm definitely, by the way, picking that movie coming up here soon. It's definitely on my list. I love The Faculty. But that's all I have for this opening group.
Yeah, so, right off the bat, this movie has that same dirty, grungy, grimy feel of the 03 remake, and I like that atmosphere for the Texas Chainsaw franchise. I think it makes it different than what you get with Nightmare, with Halloween, with Friday. You don't really get that, and with this, you kind of get that gross, Saw, hostile type atmosphere, and I enjoy that. Yeah. So, big thumbs up on keeping at least that part of the continuity. Like, I think they did a good job with that. You mentioned it. This movie is just gross in a lot of ways, and it's not a bad thing when I say that. I mean, they do a good job of making me go, ugh. The birth scene is gross too. Like, the initial birth scene is really nasty. I'm not 100% sure I need a Leatherface origin story, so going into that movie, the first time I ever saw it, I'm kind of like, okay. But right off the bat, man, you get Arlie Ermy, who is the fucking man, okay? Like, hell yeah. He is so awesome, and I'm going to get into him a little bit more later. I'm going to save my thoughts as the movie gets going. I thought that, all that open was just, I liked it. Again, I don't know if I need to see Leatherface working at a meat packing company, but, that's neither here nor there. I have in my notes, Fog Hat rules. I'm right about that. Slow Ride is a great fucking song. And while they're talking at the pool, it works perfectly. But you're not wrong, Brian. They use that music to kind of like put you in the right time period, but it really doesn't work because you can't tell. And right. You mentioned Rob Zombie, and it is very Rob Zombie because Rob Zombie has a lot of great soundtracks. That's one thing Rob Zombie gets right is the music in his movies. But you don't ever really know when those movies take place. Even his Halloween is kind of hard to tell when the fuck it happens, which is. It kind of works there. I don't know if it works here because they talk so much about Vietnam and the war and all that stuff as we're about to get into. So some of the talk in the pool, very like forward thinking and progressive, like ahead of its time. Like that dialogue would fit in to today's world. So that was kind of, I don't know, it was kind of out of place to me. So you really like this cast, and I don't hate this cast. I think they do a good job. I'm just not as invested in this group as I was in the '03 group, if that makes sense.
That's
So
fair, for sure.
as characters, I'm not as locked in, but I think they do a good job with what they're given. Like it's not a knock on them. It's just as genuine characters, I'm not as invested in seeing them survive. Like I kind of know, and you're right, knowing the Hewitt family lives on, you know that these 4 people are kind of on screen for Carnage Candy purposes. So at this point, I just want to see how each of their deaths go. Like, not if maybe one person lives, but we know the Hewitt family is surviving, so that kind of takes away some of the suspense. But first of all, both female leads. Call me sometime if we're having her on the show. Great, I'll get her number then. Sorry,
Catherine. Hey.
Hey.
You heard what he said, right?
I love you, Kat. Here's the deal. I have a nitpick with the entire Chainsaw franchise. This is the same plot as every other fucking Texas Chainsaw movie. Desert road trip, get lost, sheriff pulls you over, fuck. Like that's basically the whole franchise. Nobody really does anything different except the movie Leatherface, which is another prequel. Again, enough with the prequels. But I thought the first Leatherface kill was really good. Really well done. I liked the way it was shot. I liked the hammer stuff. And again, we get a little bit more gore than we got in the first one. Like that. I have in my notes, and I don't really know why, but I wrote down random chainsaw find because he just randomly picks this chainsaw up off the table that just so happened to be in the room that he killed this guy in. I don't know. But I'm cool with it. It sounds like a nitpick because it is. I actually kind of thought it was humorous. But you're right, Brian. This is like he's wearing the mankind mask, and I can yes. I just think Mick Foley when I see him. But I love this portrayal of Leatherface. He's so good. He's mean. He's nasty. This is Leatherface when I think of the character. Is the one in these 2 films. So job well done on that. That's all I have on these scenes.
Oh yeah, for sure. Andrew is great. The 2 couples, they drive off and they're having fun. Chrissy asks Eric what he'll miss the most once he goes back to war. Now the real Sheriff Hoyt gets to the Hewitt house. He's looking for Thomas because he killed a man, and he asks Charlie, the future Sheriff Hoyt, to join him. They leave, and he tells them he's moving to Michigan next week because this town is all drying up. There's nothing worth staying for. And then he tells the officer that his boy, Thomas, isn't retarded. He gets out to arrest him, and Hewitt, he grabs the shotgun, and he kills the sheriff. And I'm sure we all love this line. I just killed the whole fucking sheriff's department, as he tastes his blood. He steals the uniform and the car, and he heads home. He's now Sheriff Hoyt. Hoyt tells the family they're staying here. They sure as shit are going to remember what we do. They're eating the sheriff for supper. The couple stop at a gas station. They meet Luda May and some bikers. The 2 ladies talk, and Bailey says they're going to Mexico, and Dean, he's not going to war. Eric questions if Dean has anything on his mind. They drive off, and Dean starts to burn his draft card, and Eric confronts him. And now that biker chick is chasing them, and as Eric reaches to grab a gun, they hit a cow, and the car flips and it totals. It's a really bad wreck. Chrissy is thrown out. The other 3 are injured, but they're not dead. They're okay. Alex, the chick biker, she points the gun at Eric's face. Sheriff Hoyt arrives, and he is not bullshitting. He kills Alex. She shoots her dead instantly. And the other 3 are terrified. Eric sees Chrissy in the bushes. He finds the burned draft card, and Sheriff Hoyt, he questions who burned their draft card. Eric says it was him and not Dean. He calls Dean a coward, and he has Dean put Alex's body in the car, and they get in the back seat. He has Monty come pick up the wreck. And I wrote, not putting bodies in the trunk in the prequel, huh? They drive off, and Chrissy goes to the wrecked car. She looks for the gun and foolishly tries to crank the car for some reason. Come on, Chrissy. Monty got there hella fast, and he finds the gun, and he tows the truck off. All right, that's the next 2 scenes I got. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, for sure. shout out to Lou Temple, the sheriff here, for doing an intro to our show as well, which you can hear that now. Like it's on our Devil's Rejects episode where he actually played Adam Banjo in that movie, or at www.don'tgooutthere.com. But okay, my man, why would you leave that shotgun on the dash there? Come on. I mean, again, the movie kind of answers questions we weren't really asking, like
Yes.
how did our man, is it Charlie Hewitt? Was that his
Yes.
name in there?
Yeah.
How did he become the sheriff? But it's harmless, minor things. And so, to be honest, it kind of shows more about the family than it does Leatherface and what drives him anyway. And so, there's so many characters. The backstory doesn't really bother me in this instance. R. Lee Ermey, you said it a little bit, and I'll say it the whole damn time. He's just so good in these. And, you said his line, and him standing there in the mirror, those boxers scratching his nuts. It's just, he makes this movie. I mean, nobody else could have done this, and it would not have been near the movie it was without R. Lee Ermey in this. Okay, so my only problem with the characters really is Eric, Matt Bomer's character. I mean, I just think that they hammer home the quote unquote Mr. Soldier Captain America too much. And like in this group of scenes, is really where I was like, okay, come on. Because it's like literally every single line that he has is about leaving for Vietnam early. And it just doesn't seem like fluid or like realistic conversation. And the way that, Dean tells Eric with burning the card, that scene was kind of cheesy. I don't know. And like I wrote that, but then I've kind of saw where in the deleted scenes that they cut out a lot of that, which I didn't get to see. So I maybe that would have made that a little bit different and a lot less cheesy to me. But they hit that damn cow like god awful 2007 Halloween 2 running from the damn female Terminator in this movie. But which is twice, by the way, that I've mentioned Rob Zombie in this movie. So I'm sorry.
A lot less fucks in this scene, though, Brian. Sorry.
That's very true. And now see, like with the 03 remake, and I kind of touched on this in that review of that movie, but you get kind of why I do anyway. The tough guys are either gone or not around with Sheriff Hoyt, and he like never really goes ape shit crazy where they would like, I mean, he kind of shows a little bit of like, okay, something's off with him and that, but until they're like in trouble, like with the scene where he's at the car, making him put the gun to his mouth, that sort of thing. But here he's like right off the bat, like questionable as fuck, enough that Dean and Eric could have easily taken that gun and overpowered him. And so that was to me a little like unbelievable enough to the point like, they're at the car and it's hard for me to be bothered like I was in the 03 remake. It's not easily relatable to me, I guess, because it's not believable that they wouldn't overpower him in that situation. And so, I mean, I know he decides to later, but obviously it's too late. And so that's just me. And that's just kind of an insider. Like when I watch movies like that, and that's why I think 03 remake bothered me so much, is because I like empathize with, all right, well, if I was that guy, there's nothing I could have done. I would have been fucked. Whereas like, all right, well, if I'm this guy, I believe that they would have at least tried to take the gun and overpower him right there and would have never even had the rest of the movie. But that's just me, and I don't really have a whole lot on these scenes. That was just it.
Okay, so right here to me, the movie starts to drag a little bit, and again, I don't mean that this is necessarily a bad set of scenes. Some of this just takes a little longer than I would like, and I mean that's just preference. I love R. Lee Ermey here. He is the fucking man. He makes this movie to me, and again, you get a really good Leatherface performance later, but it takes a really long time to get to the Leatherface in this movie. And to me, that kind of knocks it down some. But I'll be honest, Sheriff Hoyt is a scarier character to me than Leatherface, at least in this movie. At least I'm more terrified of Sheriff Hoyt, R. Lee Ermey, than I am Leatherface up to this point, and pretty much the rest of the time. He is terrifying. I think he's a great antagonist. You don't even... Hell, I'd like to see a spinoff with just him fucking walk around murdering people. That'd be kind of cool. Anyway, hey, man, the original Sheriff Hoyt is not only in Devil's Rejects, but he's a goddamn he's a goddamn rapist guard in Rob Zombie's Halloween. Third Rob Zombie reference. Where is Dustin when you need him, man?
He would be in heaven right now.
Yeah, I'm referencing a rapist. But anyway, hey, what's Hey.
Is that, by the way, was that only in the unrated version of that movie, or was that
Yes.
rated? Oh, okay.
Hey, what's the dish, Ishmael? Hey, what the fuck? You got feelings for this freak? That's him. Same guy. All right. Anyway, by the way, the biker gang stuff, don't really care. If you really want to know my thoughts on biker gangs, there's a South Park episode about biker gangs. Just check that out. That's how I feel about them. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. By the way, I didn't know horses had organisms instead of orgasms. That was kind of weird. That's some very Rob Zombie dialogue right there.
Well, and that was only in the unrated version. I missed that whole dialogue.
Okay.
I wasn't even in it.
Hey, aren't you glad you missed horses being fingered? See, that's very, very Rob Zombie to me. But anyway, it does make sense, kind of the time period that it came out. But yeah, all this car ride and wreck, it just kind of drags a little for me. Once we get to Sheriff Hoyt, though, I think it picks up. The intensity picks up. It's really good. I love the way it's shot. In the daylight, and we kind of talked about how sometimes daylight doesn't work. I think with this it does. It's hot as fuck. The sweat, the nasty, the blood, like all that just kind of works together for that set of scenes. So I really like that. And placing it around a war it's a subplot that I'm undecided on if I really care about him being a draft dodger or not. Like it's a weird set of circumstances to me where I'm not super invested in these characters because I know they're going to die. And so it's kind of, I'm not 100% sure how I am on that subplot, but I get, hell, that may have been accidental that they hit on an issue, but they definitely did. But yeah, so, and by the way, why the fuck are you hiding and letting all your friends go through this? Anyway, that's all I got.
Yeah, no doubt.
I really like these next two set of scenes, guys.
Me too. So do I.
Hoyt asks what brought them here. Dean says he was stationed in Vietnam. And then Eric questions where the sheriff is taking them. He says, Mama's house. Eric says they're going to kill him. Thomas comes out and grabs Alex's body. He has Thomas tie Dean and Eric up in the barn. He how do you describe it? Like crucifixion kind of style?
It's
intense,
hung up.
Yeah, there's some like pulleys and like you said, crucifixion, like pulled up with the pulleys. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck that. Luda calls Hoyt dumb because the cops are going to come looking for him. Monty drops the car off by the house. Then we get, I really didn't like this, a jump scare to almost getting pissed on, Chrissy, Jordana Brewster's character. Sheriff has Tommy butcher Alex up. He hoses the guys down. Chrissy, she gets to the house, she sees what's going on, and runs to the road. They ask Monty to help, but he walks away. Then Monty walks in, he finds Bailey tied to the table on the floor. Now this is really intense. Hoyt wraps plastic wrap all around Eric's face to suffocate him, and he's harassing him for burning his draft card. Dean finally admits he's actually Dean. Hoyt stabs the knife into Eric's mouth so he can breathe again. He throws Dean on the ground. Chrissy makes it to the road. Hoyt tells Dean about his time in Korea and becoming a cannibal. Luda May washes Bailey's face. 10 push-ups and you're free, Dean. However, he beats the shit out of him with a nightstick and kicks to his ribs and his back. Intense scene with cuts to Luda May singing Rockabye Baby to Bailey, and that's really creepy. Eric encourages Dean. He makes it to 10, but receives more ass-kicking. Hoyt walks off. Chrissy flags down Holden, the male biker. He ignores her until she tells him that they took Alex as well. He grabs his gun and says, "Show me where." Let me flip my page real quick. The tea lady and Luda May, they share some tea casually over a bound-up Bailey underneath the table. Eric finally gets himself free. He helps Dean get up. Then he throws a brick through the window and barricades the door with the tea lady. He cuts Bailey free and gives her the keys to the truck. She jumps in the truck and drives off. And this is all just real quick scenes. Hoyt, he calls for Thomas. Hoyt knocks Eric out with a hit to the head with a shotgun. And then Thomas yanks Bailey out of the truck with a hook and drags her in the house. And then Dean gets caught in a bear trap. It's like talking about a plan falling apart super fast, guys. But I got that fun fact about Eric or Matt Balmer. He actually did that scene with the plastic wrap. So that's and Arlie Ermy was actually really nervous doing that scene. So big shout out to Balmer for doing that scene. But go ahead, Brian. That's the only thing I want to say.
Yeah, I had that too. And I mean, I know that there's a lot of action, a lot of stuff going on in these scenes, but there's so many nitpicks to me. Like it's almost like a frustrating group of scenes for me. Um, like playing off my last beef with how they portray the guys, and I don't know if I missed something in the unrated or the rated version or not, but it just cuts from "come on, private" to them being strung up, and I think that's a cop out, no pun intended there, but because they don't fight it, they don't do shit, and they could have easily overpowered him. I mean, did they go get Thomas to come up here and pick him up and put him on that thing? Like, I don't know. There's a lot of unanswered questions I had there, and I feel like they didn't tell me anything. It was just I was expected to believe that. And yeah, that fun, that not so fun, absolutely fucking terrifying claustrophobia fact that you just said. Yeah, that one. But I never see. I say never. I have, but it's been forever ago with the other ones. But Leatherface is not, and we kind of touched on this a little bit, but he's not the antagonist in these movies. In this, it's the Hewitt family. It's Sheriff Hoyt without a doubt, and thank God, honestly, because Arlie Ermy like carries these two movies.
Yes.
And Mike, you touched on this a little bit, and that's super contradicting for me because a million times I've said, I don't want different. I don't want Jason out of Crystal Lake, which I just complained about a couple of reviews ago, and Jason Takes Manhattan. But this is definitely very formulaic, like you said.
Yes.
And it's, pretty much the same plot, just like you said, of every one of these movies. And so I'm like, I kind of wish that it would have tried to do something a little bit different. And I don't have anything off the top of my head, I'd like to have rather seen, I don't know. But it's just, okay, let me just, maybe I said all that to make this point, is that it's not scary at all to me because, knowing the Hewitt family is all on the next one and knowing these people aren't going to survive, it takes away the tension that I would normally have. And that I had a shitload of in the 03 remake. I definitely felt that tension through that whole film, and I don't feel that at all here. I just am kind of sitting down watching a gore fest. And so, I don't know. Anyway, and I do like, though, how they just kind of briefly inserted the whole cannibal story and why he eats people and quickly and briefly, but it don't hit you over the head with it either. So that's what I kind of like. Like I said earlier, it gives you answers to questions you aren't asking, but they're small enough little tidbits that it's not really that big of a deal. And also, obviously, it's a stupid ass decision for Chrissy to just leave them and go off. I mean, I think we can all pretty much agree on that. But I know we get to give them a little hope with her, but maybe they could have had them just like, I don't know, had the biker just happen upon her motorcycle or something. I don't know, but having her just leave them after seeing that all tied up wasn't realistic to me. And shit, I mean, how long did she walk? It takes her no time to get back to the road, but it takes hours, and it's dark before she gets back. And because in the next group of scenes, it's clearly daytime when her and Holden are walking through the woods, and then the next cut, it's dark and they're still not there yet. So I don't know. Did they get lost? Did I miss something in an unrated version there? I don't know. My last nitpick is that, fuck, how fast is Leatherface that he could just hawk down that damn truck out of nowhere and grab Bailey? And I mean, look, Eric would have beat Hoyt's ass just as soon as he got within reaching distance of that gun. I think he would have grabbed him. He would not ever have let the dude stick it up to his forehead and got close enough without putting hands on him. So I don't know. That's why it's such a frustrating group of scenes for me, where it's like, yes, it's action packed, and yes, some stuff's finally happening, but I think all of the common sense parts of it that I like to insert in things aren't here, and so that's why it's frustrating.
Hey, Mike, before you go, yeah, Brian, in the unrated or whatever, the Blu-ray that I have, it shows Chrissy and Holden, they're walking back to the house, and Chrissy just appears to be lost because Holden, I think, asks, where's his house or something like that, and they can't find it. So there is a brief little they're lost moment, but you're right. She finds the house, or she finds the road really fast, but then gets lost super easy. So I feel you on that nitpick. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, the whole Chrissy, her whole story arc to me is frustrating because why did she go off on her own? I really don't think that that's the right thing to do here, leave to abandon your friends. Like I kind of, I guess, could get her mindset where she's like, okay, I'll save them later. But no, man, like you're kind of ditching your friends. But anyway, and you're right about everything you said. So I'm not going to keep hammering the same nail there. But okay. So again, this is kind of my point with Sheriff Hoyt being the main antagonist here. He takes them to the house. He ties them up. Like this is normally what Leatherface would be doing. And so, like Brian said, Leatherface is not a great antagonist in this movie. Like there's the final little bit that I know we're going to talk about where he's great, but we just don't. To me, this movie doesn't have enough of him. And I know we're telling an origin story and we're trying to kind of lay some back work that you can watch this movie and put it right up next to 03 Chainsaw, but some of that I didn't necessarily like. I kind of like Sheriff Hoyt as a side antagonist where he plays along with Leatherface. To me, he's the asshole here. So, but again, I like the character of Sheriff Hoyt so much. It's kind of a nitpick. I like the scene in the barn with all the the face wrap and the push-ups and the bear trap. Like all of that is really good. And I think it's intense. It's very captivating to me. So to me, that little run right there is probably my favorite part of the movie until we get to about the last 10 minutes. Because up to this point, I'm not necessarily invested, like I said, in these characters. So it's kind of dragging. It's still a good little horror movie, but it's not doing enough for me to have it up there, with 03. And of course I'm going to compare it to that movie because it's the prequel to that movie. So of course I'm going to go back and forth in my head with that. It's kind of why I really don't have a whole lot on these scenes, except that I really like the way they shoot that little section of scenes with the push-ups and the way that Arlie Ermy acts and the way that Dean is there. Like all of that is really good. It's again, and where Chrissy flags down Holden, I'm good on Holden as a character, man. Like, don't need him, don't care, what the fuck ever. Like I don't know. Again, he's there to get killed on screen, and boy, does he get killed on screen. That's going to be a thumbs up later. Spoiler alert on that. But yeah, so this I like the scenes because they were starting to kind of turn up the volume a little bit, but there does come a point where I need it to go a little faster. And we're about to get into stuff that goes a little faster. And before we even get to that, Nico, I kind of want we already got one dinner table scene. We're going to get a fucking another dinner table scene. And every Texas Chainsaw has to have a goddamn dinner table scene. And I've seen them all, okay? I had put myself through that misery of watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Next Generation with Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger. And even it has a damn dinner table scene. Just think of this shit. If you're about to get right to it, by the way, you're about to get right into the dinner table scene. So that's why I prefaced it. I'm teeing you up here, man.
All right, nighttime now. Hoyt has Tommy take Eric to his butcher room. Because Hoyt's like, you think I'm a pussy? Well, why don't you see if my little nephew Tommy is? All right. So Holden and Chrissy finally make it to the house. Fuck your friends, Holden says. Thomas punches Eric, and Chrissy finds Dean. He tells her to go get help, and she says there is no help. Sheriff cops a feel and then binds Bailey to the bed. Thomas nails Eric's hands and feet to the table with these like metal constraints. He gropes his face and then cuts his shirt off. Holden enters the house, and Chrissy climbs in through a window and sneaks through the house. Monty is met by Holden and gets shot in the leg. Where's the girl, he says. He puts the gun to Hoyt's head now. Sheriff takes him to Bailey's room. Thomas is butchering Eric's arm, and it's awful. Thomas goes upstairs as Hoyt calls him. Chrissy finds a severely injured Eric. He can't feel his arm, and he's cold, he says. He asks about their future kids. Holden says that that's not the girl. And then you see like he's got the gun pointed at the sheriff. But then Thomas, he comes out and hits him in the arm with the chainsaw and throws him on top of it. Hoyt holds him down, and then Thomas cranks up the chainsaw and cuts him in half. And that's, spoiler alert, I think that's my favorite kill. Hoyt harasses the dead biker, and he's like cussing him out. And that's a really intense scene. He's got blood on his face. It's awesome. Thomas goes downstairs, and Chrissy hides under the table Eric is on. He fires up the chainsaw and kills Eric and almost hits Chrissy in the face. He grabs a knife and cuts Eric's face off as she watches it. He removes his face covering and he puts on Eric's face as his new mask, and Hoyt compliments him on it. Now Chrissy sees Eric's remains and falls in the water, of course. She exits the room and is almost out of the house and leaves, but she hears Bailey's cry for help. And the next two scenes are the ending. Go ahead, Brian.
Wait, hold up. So they cut Holden in half? Like, because they didn't show that on the theatrical version. So they just kind of implied that, but
dude,
I didn't get to see
Oh,
it.
they show it, brother.
Hey, Brian, they throw him on top of it. He cranks it up, and he yanks it. He cuts him in half, and then you see his body shaking and convulsing. And then, like, Arlie Ermy grabs his head and, like, beats it on the ground. And he's like, "You son of a bitch, you asshole," all that stuff. And he's got blood all over his face. It's awesome. And then Bailey is in the bed crying and screaming. It's intense, dude.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was good that I saw it. Just didn't show the cut in half part. Which, man, I got to watch that the unrated version. I might like this a little bit better.
Honestly, the effects on that are great. They do a great job. It's awesome, dude.
Awesome. Well, and I agree with you, Mike. Whenever you said you that they do daytime very well, and they did in the 03 remake too. So I agree with you when I say this, but I really like the nighttime whenever it turns nighttime, and it's both of these because I think that it's, if I recall correctly, that it's about the third act too, where it gets dark in the 03 remake. So I like how they kind of have the same progression, and at nighttime's the big third act. So anyway, I definitely like that. I wanted to say that. And holy shit at Eric's death, like that to me. And I know they cut some scenes out of that, but let me tell you, what I saw, the theatrical version, holy shit, like, I don't know how they didn't have to cut that part, because, I mean, so if this made it through, I don't know if I wouldn't have seen the other, because holy shit, like, we're not even through yet. Just like, being under that table and then her getting up to see her boyfriend like that with her face cut off. My God, like that was epic. And I watched a little bit behind the scenes video of kind of how they did that, the special effects on that. So I'm not really sure where I saw that. It's on YouTube, so just look at it. But it's really cool to go do some extra research and look at it. So
Dead Meat had it in the kill count, I believe.
Oh, did he? Okay, good. I didn't watch that kill count, but if it's on there, great. Go watch that. Plus, he's funny as hell anyway. So, and so this is the last thing I have to say, because I really don't have a lot about these scenes besides just the fact that wow, because it's just gore factor serious or crazy. But this is where what I'm going to say, like, I may have some people, and maybe you two will roll your eyes at me too anyway, but I almost felt like it's a little bit too much. Like in 2003's wasn't this like shock pornish, and I understand, because Mike's absolutely right when he said it came out, around Saw and Hostel had already came out, so they felt like they had to up the ante, I'm sure. But I don't feel like that, because 03 I felt like did it, and they didn't need the total shock fact. They didn't need to show somebody's getting, what's his name, the lead from that movie, getting his face cut off. It was as effective when you saw him wearing it going, holy shit, that's his face. It was, and to me, I don't know. That's my biggest point. And I've already said this part where it's like, this movie, it wasn't able to scare you or even use the tension very well, because it's a prequel. And I feel like it had that working against it. So, cause you're aware of the outcome and all that, but it had to rely so much on gore and jump scares, which they didn't even use a whole bunch of jump scares either. But I felt like they were almost handcuffed into, okay, we almost have to do that. And I don't know. I mean, while I'm sitting here, contradicting myself, telling you how I want to watch the dude get his chainsaw in half because I missed it, maybe. And then I'm telling you, I don't know, showing me his face getting cut off was probably a little bit much for me. So I don't know. Like I said, I'm contradicting myself, but that's kind of me throughout all of these anyway. So, but that's all I had on these scenes.
Yeah. So I'm kind of going to contradict myself a couple times here, but that kind of happens on this show. So it's okay. Just from the standpoint of this movie being scary, this definitely doesn't have that same suspense and use of, like, the way they move the camera and the way it's lit and everything that the 03 one has. Again, we're going to keep comparing the two because, again, it's a fucking prequel to that movie. So I'm okay with comparing the two. It doesn't have that scare factor to me that the 03 movie did. The first time I ever watched it, I was genuinely a little unnerved by what I was watching, that first 03 movie. This one has a lot of, and I don't mean this in a bad way with Saw. I love Saw. But some of the Saw sequels, we obviously kind of go, the torture porn direction, and especially Hostel. I'm going to just throw Hostel out there as the example.
Yeah.
This movie definitely has some of those vibes. And so some of the scariness to me, that suspense factor is taken out with some of the gore. And I like gore. Gore is fine. I think the way they kill Eric is brutal. Yeah. It's gross, but it works to me. Sometimes when they remove the face, though, I don't know if I necessarily need to see that. But I thought it worked for this movie because we're already going that direction. Might as well show me. So, again, the hold and kill that we already kind of touched on as a group, really love it. I think it's awesome. The effects are great. The blood on Arlie Ermy, and he's screaming, fuck, and all this stuff. Like, it's so good. Well acted. Well done with the effects. I think the nighttime works as well. And I think just like the shaking and everything by Holden during that whole thing is great. And the cutting in half does not bother me. I think this movie has awesome kills. So I want to point that out. That for all the bad things that I've kind of hinted at with the gore, the kills are great. They're creative. I like just about every single kill in this movie. So kudos to that, because normally, no matter what movie we talk about, there's a stinker of a kill. And I don't necessarily think this movie has a bad kill. They're not all excellent, but they're all really good. And so big props to that. And this set of scenes kind of has that to me. And what we're about to get into, more good kills to come, at least in my opinion. But again, I'm watching this movie for those reasons, and I would rather be watching the movie for the story. So there's a little bit of give and take there because, again, I don't necessarily care about Chrissy, Eric, Bailey. Like, I honestly don't really care because I'm more invested in the Hewitt family than I am the rest of the characters. So that's kind of what this movie is. It's a Hewitt family movie. And this set of scenes reminded me of that. I'm more invested in making sure that Arlie Ermy lives. I know he does, but there's some parts in this little set of scenes here where I don't know what they're trying to do, but I don't believe that he's gonna die. So it just it feels like a little bit of a waste. But I like this set of scenes. I think it being nighttime, like you said, Brian, really helps. And I think the kills and the gore work, but I also just wish that the story was a little bit stronger underneath that. That's all.
Yeah, and I don't want to beat, a dead horse right now, but, kind of like we've touched on in the past, after Scream came out, all the movies that followed it were Scream-like. You know what
Exactly.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
So this movie, the beginning, came out in 2006. Hostel came out, I just looked on IMDb, January 2006. Saw 1 and 2 had already released, and then Saw 3 released 3 weeks after this one. So I definitely feel like this movie upped the gore just to, keep up with the Joneses, really, with everything that was going on.
Absolutely. And thrown into that mix are the 2 Rob Zombie movies, The House of a Thousand Corpses and Devil's Rejects. They also up the ante with not only the gore, but just like the on-screen violence and the dialogue that we get in some of this movie. It's definitely Devil's Rejects level of dialogue. Like, there's, again, some of the acting is really good from the Hewitt family, but the dialogue has a little bit of that Rob Zombie feel to me. At least in the unrated version, it does.
There's another Rob Zombie quote or a reference.
Well,
yeah, like if the 03 remake would have been the 06 remake, you would see Kemper's death more. Yep. You would see Pepper's kill. You would see Pepper's kill more because you didn't really see a lot. You just saw quick hit and then it's done. So not to beat a dead horse, but I definitely think this one was just trying to keep up with the times with the gore.
And every big slasher franchise has done that though. You see, Friday upped the ante on Halloween, and then Halloween 4 turns around and does that because it was a response to the Friday franchise. So, there's always trying to up the ante with that. And the same thing with all the, the Scream, I won't call them knockoffs, but Scream Lights, because I Know What You Did Last Summer and The Faculty. I like those movies, but they are Scream Light in a way. So every...
Oh, yeah. I mean, they got the same writer. Absolutely.
Right. So every big genre-changing film has its copycats. And to me, this just kind of came out in that zombie Saw Hostel time period where we have to be dirty and gross and grungy. And I like that aesthetic, but we do get a lot of like copycat dialogue and gore in this movie. So, yeah.
And guys, if you think about it, Leatherface's looks almost exactly like the guys in the Hostel, with the torture people.
Yeah, yes.
Like 03 and 06, like Leatherface's look isn't even the same, really. It's different.
Yep, absolutely.
I have to admit, I have never seen Hostel just because of the torture porn reputation. I've just never seen it.
First one, not bad. The second one is tough.
Yeah. But, let's jump into these last two scenes. All right, Chrissy, she heads up the stairs. Uncle Monty, he sits in a chair. Hoyt asks if he trusts him. He has Thomas cut off Monty's leg that got shot in the gun with the gun. Hoyt says, "Thomas, that's sloppy, so cut off his other leg too." Chris, and I like what he says. "What'd you do that for?" "Balance." I like that line for some. It's just a little funny moment in a really intense scene. Chrissy almost gets spotted, but makes it to Bailey's room. She unties her, but Hoyt walks in on them. Time for supper. They drag Dean inside. Chrissy appears to have been drugged. She wakes up and calls them degenerates as Luda May is cutting off Bailey's hair. Calls them an incestual family. Thomas walks in, grabs the scissors, and cuts Bailey's throat, killing her, setting her free. He grabs Chrissy and carries her off, but she grabs a screwdriver and stabs him in the back. And why did you not just keep stabbing him, Chrissy? Why did you not do that? She jumps out the window, and now Leatherface chase time. Dean wakes up and sees his dead girlfriend. He attacks Hoyt on the porch, bashing his head on the porch repeatedly, knocking his teeth out. And, he's just saying basically the same stuff that Hoyt was telling him when he was doing push-ups. Dean, he hears a chainsaw, chase through the woods, and we're in the meat plant again. She finds the dead owner's keys and hides in a container of blood. I don't know what that thing's actually called. Leatherface quickly finds her and almost kills her, but Dean hacks him in the back with an axe. Like an idiot, he tries to help Chrissy, so he gets killed by the chainsaw epically. I really like his kill too, but I'll get into that later. She runs out and gets in the car to leave. She sees a police officer with a civilian pulled over, and she thinks she's home free. Let me flip my page. Then all of a sudden, Leatherface pops up in the back seat, and he kills her with the chainsaw through the seat. The car hits the two men, killing them as well. And the film ends with Leatherface walking down the road, chainsaw in hand. And I like the ending. The film ends with narration. From 1969 to 1973, the Hewitt family murdered 33 people across the state of Texas. To this day, it is universally considered the most notorious and brutally sadistic killing spree in the annals of American history, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I really like that. I love that narration.
I love all the narration from the very original Texas Chainsaw, and then this set of two are the same guy, and I think it works really well. So just
yeah. It's John Larroquette, and it's perfect.
It's
Hey,
perfect.
my mind was slipping me. I couldn't remember who it was.
Yeah,
But go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, first of all, I'm pretty confident that Uncle Monty would have passed out during that whole quote unquote surgery, but I wanted to see him salt that wound like he did. I think it was Kemper in the 03 remake where he salted him and then wrapped it in that paper. I heard him wrap it in that paper, but I didn't see him salt it because even that made me cringe. I remember in that 03 remake, I missed it right there. It would have been good. But I did laugh my ass off at the another plate for supper. You can stay line delivered from Arlie Army. I mean, that was just brilliantly delivered there. Speaking of lines, though, honestly, the line from Chrissy about fucking all your cousins or just the ones you find attractive or whatever. I like that line. It makes her seem like a tough, badass bitch, but it just seems out of place. I don't feel like that was really the I don't know. It just wasn't the place to say that. It was just 5 Rob Zombie references if you're counting. But that dialogue led to that amazing delivery from Marley Army where he said, "You blasphemous bitch!" Like, I'll forgive it because I thought that was great.
So good.
Anything that plays into him is just fucking great. But and also shit, Dean knocking out all his teeth was subtle too, so that was a nice little touch, a nice little answer to a question you weren't asking about the 03 one, like how did he lose his teeth? But he should have killed him, and Mike already talked about this. Like, you can't. It's not like it cuts away and never shows him again, and kind of leads you to believe, well, maybe he died. Obviously, he didn't. So you would have really had to start with this movie, and maybe that's something I wish I would have been able to do, is start with this and then not ever have seen the 03 remake and just see how if I would have liked things differently or better or not. I don't know, but having seen it, where that's going, and so there was no tension whatsoever. And again, like that tension that I was just talking about with Chrissy back at the meatpacking plant, we know she doesn't live. So, it's not like Jessica Biel where you're like trying to root for her to get away. You're just kind of waiting for her to die. And when Leatherface like rears up with that chainsaw, you got to give him that lateral roll there, Chrissy. I mean, obviously she's never done mat drills, but she's got her lateral roll in that position. But the way I think it should have ended is one of their group should have been that girl from the 03 remake who they found walking down the road, and they shouldn't have had this set years before, but like maybe just before. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that would have been a cool move into the next movie, because I don't really like the way that this ended at all. I mean, Leatherface fucking like transported into the back of the car because stealth is, definitely Leatherface's strength here with a fucking chainsaw. But, that's my only problem is the movie, the ending. But like we talked about, Larroquette's, coming back for the prologue. I mean, seriously, it didn't even matter the problems with the movie. Just hearing him give that is perfect. It almost gives me, what's that, Unsolved Mysteries vibe type of thing. I don't know. Like, it's the same voice that you put with it. Larroquette's is who you put with the Chainsaw Massacre, with that whole camera going off. I know there were 3 alternate endings, where Chrissy gets in the car after escaping the meat factory and Leatherface is not in the back seat, but then Leatherface like saws through the window with the chainsaw and he kills Chrissy. That might have been better to me because he didn't transport into the back seat. So I think that one would have been better. The other 2 endings were just kind of meh. I mean, he kills Chrissy from the back seat with a knife through the chest instead of the chainsaw, which was better with the chainsaw, and the other one was the same but didn't have the Larroquette voiceover. So fuck that. So I think the other alternate ending would have been better for me.
Yeah. So all right. I know I like kind of shit on the dinner table stuff, but it being kind of iconic and synonymous with the franchise, some of this kind of works here. I like this last little bit, but this to me is kind of the same as the last set of scenes, which was, this is about the kills and the Hewitt family. Like, how cool can we make these kills? And I think they do a good job. Like, again, I don't think there are any bad kills in this movie. I think Dean's death is awesome. Like, the way he picks him up with the chainsaw, I think that's really cool. Like, yeah. I have no issue with that at all. That's a great kill. I think I even like the end. I agree with you, Brian. I don't like how Leatherface gets into the car, but I think the kill is really good. And the suspense with what's going on outside the car kind of helps with that to me. I think it's really good. So while I might not love the ending, I don't hate the ending. And the narration makes it, man.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Like there is, and again, Arlie Ermey kind of comes back into the movie, even though I don't really know why he was gone to begin with. We know he lives, so there is no suspense there. That's a nitpick, I guess. But I agree with you, Brian. I would have maybe injected at least one character from that 03 movie into this movie somehow, because then you really have connective tissue. I would have had whoever was in that car be somebody from this, from the 03. That way and I've done this where I've watched this movie and gone right into 03, and it does fit well. So I will give them credit. It's like a decent puzzle piece of connective tissue where you can watch the movies back to back and they feel like they take place in the same place, same universe, same timeline.
Yeah.
But it's missing connective tissue with the characters outside of the Hewitt family. Like, I just think it would have been really cool to have some connective tissue there within the two. But again, I don't hate any of this. I think it's good. So my thoughts on this part are just kind of, this is a nice little horror movie. Like, I know I'm not trying to downplay it, but it's a slasher at its slasheriest at this point. Like, it's just cool kills, a lot of violence. The music is there, and like you said, I love that little cha-ching cha-ching from the Texas Chainsaw franchise in general. If it's not in your Texas Chainsaw movie, you have fucked up. It's just part of the atmosphere, that mood that kind of gets you in the, get you into watching these movies. So I like it. I think it's good. And props on the net kill at the dinner table. I like that. Like, again, I don't think there's any bad kills in this. Like, I think it was done really well. And to see Dean wake up next to her was again, if I'm going to invest in the characters at all, I was kind of like, oh man, poor guy right there. But outside of that, I don't really have any problems with any of this. I just don't love it. Like, there's just a lot of liking going on. Like, I like the movie. I like this set of scenes, but I don't love anything. So,
well, if you'll remember, like in the 03 remake, when we were talking about it, I even said, like, how, the blonde girl that got in the car and then ended up shooting herself. Like, I almost said that there was almost like a prequel there with,
I think
because,
so too.
They show the car, they show the picture of the family, like, that they find and all that stuff. Like, I almost like, and Hoyt has his gun, that was his gun that she had, that she shot himself with. How did she get it? Like, there's a lot of stuff that I would have maybe liked. So if you took that girl and maybe put her in this group and then answered those questions, it would have made 03 remake even better. Like, it would have, I think it would have enhanced both movies. But that's just me. I mean, the hour 30 runtime was good enough. That might have made it too long. I don't know. But I just felt like it was missing a little bit something that might have helped out with.
Do any of y'all got any final thoughts for Brian? Brian's going to go into the differences between the director's cut and the theatrical release. Y'all got any final thoughts before we do that?
I'm good, man. Let's get into it.
All right, Brian, go ahead, brother.
Okay, yeah, and I'm trying not to go on too long here. Number one, there's a bit more blood whenever Leatherface's mom is in labor with Leatherface, so it's not that big of a deal. There are two more violent shots of Leatherface smashing his boss's legs with a hammer, which I thought that scene was violent enough anyway. But there's a whole new scene where 9 bikers, including Holden and Alex, smash up the car of the teens, which also causes Eric's mirror to break, which explains his line later on when he says, "God damn it, broke my mirror," which I didn't get because I don't have the unrated version. So when he said that, I was like, I don't even know what the hell I blew it off. There's some extra dialogue, like we already touched on with Sheriff Winston and Hoyt, where Sheriff Winston tells Hoyt, how one of his friends, told him to finger the horse, which we already talked about. At the first dinner table scene, Hoyt talks more about the people in the town leaving, and we see Leatherface start to actually eat. There's a very short conversation with Holden and Alex into Luda May's store after Bailey asks where the bathroom is. More character development. Hoyt pulls out a piece of glass out of Bailey's stomach after the car crash, and he licks the blood off of the glass, and Bailey screams at him with expletives. There's some more dialogue in Sheriff Hoyt's car with Eric, Bailey, and Dean in it. When Bailey is tied under the table, Leatherface walks into the room and she starts screaming as he just stares at her. Before letting Dean do the push-ups, Hoyt yells some more at Dean, and now Dean has to do 20 push-ups instead of 10. The scene is the same, but Dean just goes from 8 to 18 very quickly. There's some more dialogue between Luda May and T-Lady, including the T-Lady saying how she thinks iced coffee is good, so I'm glad they cut that shit. Eric's torture scene's a bit longer. It includes some more shots of him getting tortured and a shot from his arm skin getting peeled off, which, holy shit, no, they couldn't have added a whole lot more gore to that, but I guess they could have. The scene where Chrissy first enters the house is extended a little bit when Luda May drops the jar. She cleans up the mess and she throws it in the trash can. Useless scene. Holden's death is more graphic. It includes an extra shot of him getting cut in half. So there you go. That's what I missed. Eric's death has more graphic shots, including a piece of flesh flying out of his body and the chainsaw coming really close to Chrissy, like underneath that table. The scene where Monty's legs are cut off is extended. There's an extra shot of his legs falling to the ground. There's 3 more here. During Bailey's death scene, there's an extra shot of Hoyt smiling at Leatherface before he slits her throat. Then there's an extra graphic shot of Bailey's slit throat that goes on a little bit longer. In the slaughterhouse, when Leatherface looks for Chrissy in the pools of blood, we see an extra point of view shot from Leatherface looking into a blood pool without Chrissy in it. And there's a lot of rotten flesh floating around. More useless scene, though. During Dean's death scene, there's an extra graphic shot above Dean where Leatherface is still running the chainsaw for 5 more seconds. And lastly, Chrissy's death scene includes 2 extra shots. One is of the chainsaw cutting up her belly button, and the second shot is him pulling the chainsaw out of her. So those are all the differences in there. Definitely, it's almost a different movie, almost gore-wise, for sure.
See, I'm wondering if some of that is some of the deleted scenes, too, because not all of those are in the version I watched either. Like the bikers attacking the car. Yeah, that's not in the part I watched. That might be some of the – because, you know, they had to cut 17 scenes, I think, to make this from NC-17 to R. So that might be some of the deleted scenes too. But we got a question from a fan on Facebook, and this is a pretty good question, honestly. Do you think a prequel was necessary? In your opinions, did it do a good job of giving us history on these characters? And that's from Michelle Mirza on Facebook. And I'll answer it first. I'm going to say yeah, because I like the 03 remake. I like this Hoyt. I won't say I like the Hewitt family, but they're fascinating as hell. They're entertaining to watch, and kind of like we talked about with another It sequel or prequel or whatever. I want more Bill Skarsgård. I want more Pennywise. I want more good Leatherface and good Hewitt family. Like, we don't get a lot of these slasher type movies anymore. So, yeah, if this is all you got and it's good, yeah, I'll take more of it. Brian, Mike, you want to go next?
Mike can go since I was just ran my mouth for like 20 minutes.
All right. Necessary. Well, is a sequel or prequel ever really necessary? Probably not. But I enjoy it. I'm glad it exists. I probably would have rather seen a sequel than a prequel, because I, like you, Nico, I want to see more of this Hewitt family in this version of Leatherface. Like, I think there's more story to be told. There's more meat on the bone, which is why I probably would have preferred a sequel to a prequel. But at least we have 2 movies with them. A sequel will probably never happen. I know there are scripts out there for it, though. So, you know, if you could get the people together, you know, as much of them as possible, that might be something to look forward to down the road. Probably not ever going to happen, but I would have rather seen a sequel. But I'm glad there is at least a prequel to that 03 movie, because that 03 movie is so damn good. And plus, I miss seeing slashers on my movie screen. So the more the merrier.
Yeah, and I touch on this just briefly, kind of at a little bit at the end in my little summary. So whenever I rate it, so I'll go into that a little bit more. But I mean, the short answer is, you know, kind of the same thing that they said. You know, basically any more of this family. I liked seeing this whole basically universe that they started with the 03 remake. So, and again, like, this is my favorite version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So, you know, was it necessary? Like Mike said, no, it wasn't necessary, but I'm glad that it exists too. And I'm perfectly fine with what they did. Now, did I have a lot of nitpick through the movie? Yeah. I mean, but you know, no movie's perfect. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad it exists. And you know, I think that they do enough explaining backstory that, you know, it's a nice little addition to what we had in 03, without going way over the top. Like, they didn't make a huge big deal about all these all these questions that aren't being asked. Explaining it, they were just little subtle things here and there that you pick up if you saw the 03 remake. So I think they did a really good job, and I think my rating will reflect that.
Yeah, and Mike, I'm not calling you out or nothing, but I don't think a sequel would work for the '03 remake because I mean, Sheriff is dead now apparently,
Right, right.
and Leatherface has only got one arm, so I don't know where they would go with that.
Well, you know
I
damn
would.
well when somebody dies in a horror movie what that means.
I don't know. I don't know if Sheriff Hoyt has Jason and Michael abilities. He's a bad mofo, but I don't know if he's that bad.
They're bringing Stu back and Scream, so whatever.
No, fuck that if they do. Uh, I'm sorry, guys. All right, let's jump into fun facts. I'll go first real quick. I only got like 4 or 5 of them. During filming, Arlie Ermey was called away to his mother's deathbed for the remainder of the film, or for the remainder of time. Filming was done around his character, and these are all from IMDb. According to producer Brad Fuller, the film was given an NC-17 by the MPAA, and a total of 17 scenes had to be edited in order to get an R rating. My bad, not cut, but edited. I'm sorry, I said that wrong throughout. The chainsaw that Leatherface, I can't talk right now. The chainsaw that Leatherface uses in the film weighed 35 pounds. The cow that gets hit by the Jeep was made of fiberglass and filled with blood, fake entrails, and fake bones, then screwed together. We already touched on that Matt Bomer actually did his own scene with the saran wrap. And whenever he was having trouble breathing, he would just indicate it by knocking his knees together. Taylor Hanley impressed the director and producer so much when auditioning for the film, they cast him immediately after the audition. That was Dean. Marietta Merrick said the surgery scene was so realistic that it was very hard to watch. And the last one I got was Marietta Merrick came up with the idea to sing Hush Little Baby to Bailey at the dinner table, which director Jonathan Liebesman thought was one of the creepiest things in the movie. That's all I got.
I don't have any. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, let's talk about the box office because I found this kind of interesting. So even after the success of '03, which grossed $107.1 million, which holy shit, that's a lot for a Texas Chainsaw movie, highest grossing one. This movie grossed less than half of that, 51.8 mil against a $14 million budget. I just think that maybe the idea of a prequel maybe push some people away. That's what I would take from it. But I'm kind of shocked by that because, again, that first one made so much money. I would have assumed that at least over half of the people would flock back to see it. But there is a lot of diehard fans of this movie that because of the DVDs, and it ended up on Netflix for a good 3-year run there, where a lot of people are big time defenders of this movie. So maybe it just needed some time to kind of marinate. What I will say is it's not anywhere close to the lowest grossing Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Hold on, I'll give you that right now. Are you ready? The Texas Chainsaw Massacre with Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger, $185,898.
Wow. Wow.
Oh, man.
Manhattan made more than that.
Oh, it made a shit ton more than that. Jesus, that didn't even crack 200,000. Freaking Nick Saban makes more in a year than that movie made. Anyway, go ahead.
Nick Saban makes way more than that in a year.
Hell, he makes more than half this franchise grossed. All right, anyway, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
All right, y'all ready to jump into favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating? Brought to you by Manscaped. Go to manscaped.com and use code DON'TGO to get 20% off and free shipping.
Yes, you should. The lawnmower is great. Just throwing that out there. So is the ball deodorant. Just saying, fellas.
Facts. I love that spray.
Me too.
And I'm not just sponsor plugging. It really does
Me
smell
either.
good.
It smells good and it works. No chafe. No chafe.
Mike, this is your pick. You said you want to go last. I'll go ahead and just go first. And like I told you, I love this movie. Favorite kill, I picked Holden. Brian, you definitely got to see the unrated because you got to see Holden's full kill. It's a unique chainsaw kill, and it's a powerful scene. He gets cut in half, then Arlie Ermey's bashing his head and body against the ground, cussing at him, Bailey screaming. And you see, Leatherface as he's cutting through him, his head shaking. Dude, it's freaking awesome. I love that kill. And before y'all cast or shoot me down, my least favorite kill is Dean. I wrote it's a cool kill, honestly, but Dean's character just aggravated me so often because he didn't kill the sheriff. He hacks Leathersaw one time with the axe and then tries to save Chrissy. It's like, Dean, what the fuck are you doing, Dean? Do you have any clutchness in you at all? All right, my rating. I told y'all before we started this, I like this movie just as much as the remake. I gave it the same, a 9.5. Yep, I love it. I watch them both the same amount. Struggled with this rating, honestly, but I like this movie just as much as the '03 remake. I wrote, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I really enjoyed this backstory, and as demented as the Hewitt family is, they're fascinating to follow. I got a few nitpicks. Dean at the end. The final kill of Jordana is a little unbelievable. He just fires the chainsaw up that fast. And how he just hid in the back seat. Real. I mean, he's a big son of a gun. You didn't see him? I've watched this movie several times, and I really like it. I think this movie, I mean, like Brian said at the beginning, I'm invested in all four of the, they teens, young 20s, whatever they are. I'm invested in them as soon as we start the movie. I'm already invested with Arlie Ermy because he's a sick son of a bitch. And I love Andrew Bernarski, however you say his last name. I love him as Leatherface. Luda May, she's old woman sweet but terrifying.
Yeah.
I love the '03 and the '06 timeline of Texas Chainsaw. I think it's great. So yeah, I give them both the same rating. I think they were both done very well. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I actually we had friend of the show Adam Marcus on to kind of discuss Jason Goes to Hell, but we briefly touched on Texas Chainsaw 3D in that interview at don'tgooutthere.com. But I hope to have him back on whenever we actually do finally get to Texas 3D, because I would love to know why the hell they didn't try. And I know Nico said it would be hard. Where would you go from there? But you didn't try to even follow the storyline further that this one and the '03 remake just set before you and made the most money. So I would love to and why do they play on the 3 for 3D and the third entry in this new remake adaptation if you aren't even going to follow the story? So anyway, I don't get that, and I would love to ask him that. So anyway, I have questions, but all in all, it was a solid entry. But it was not obviously without its problems to me. I gave the '03 remake a 9.5 as well. So I loved that one. This one has a little bit more problems though. I'm going to actually rate this one a 7.5. My favorite kill, I'm going to go with the cow. No, I'm just fucking with you. That was awesome though. And actually, I think I'm gonna split this up because I think the best, well done, because I saw all the behind the scenes stuff and how they did it. Dean's was the best kill, but my favorite kill was probably Eric's, just because I thought it was pretty unique how he picked him up and just whatever. And so I had 3 for that one. And I didn't really have a least favorite kill, but like Nico, I didn't like the whole ending kill and how that whole thing, for the exact same reasons that I said during the recap there of Chrissy dying at the very end. So that's going to be my least favorite kill. And also I've got Dustin. So do you want Dustin to go before you, Mike, or after?
Yeah, go ahead and give Dustin.
Best kill, Dean getting lifted up by the chainsaw, and the brutality of it was awesome. Worst kill, if I don't count Thomas's mom in the beginning, Chrissy. Because how the hell did he get in the car and stay so quiet without being seen or heard? He says the same shit. Without being seen or heard. And he didn't even crank up the chainsaw. All of a sudden, she's dead. Get the fuck out of here. Rating, 6.5. It's entertaining, brutal, gory, well cast, and does enough to keep me interested. I also appreciate the way that so many details from '03 were explained. Not great by any means, but I would definitely watch it again.
Man, he basically has my same thoughts. Okay.
Same thing I said.
Yeah. So again, I think this is a really entertaining movie. It's a cool little horror movie. Especially it's very of its time, very '06, very mid 2000s, no doubt about that. You could pop this in and know what time this movie was made just by the way, certain things go. I like that about it because, that's high school for me, and that's when I saw this movie. So anyway, my favorite kill is, man, It's so hard. I'm gonna have to go Holden. I just love it so much. The way everything is done and the unrated version of the Holden kill. Ryan, again, second
Must be
recommendation.
nice.
Please,
Must be nice.
I'll send you a link or something, man. 'Cause I have the DVD. Yeah, I have the Blu-ray as well, and it's so good. Great. I'll go Chrissy as my least favorite. I don't necessarily hate any of these kills, but if I have to go with my least favorite, it would be her because of the just illogical nature of how he got in the fucking car in the first place. So again, really good, solid follow-up to that 03. I know it's a prequel, but it's still a follow-up. I think they do enough good to keep me entertained. They do enough. They don't over-explain anything, and I hate when a prequel does that. I don't think that they overstep anything. There's some nice subtle nods. If you've seen 03, you know what all of this means. How the uncle loses his legs. I kind of like that. That's kind of a fun way to find out, at least to me. I like this movie's gore for what it's going for. Now, again, I would rather have more story, more suspense, more good horror movie stuff, but this is, again, a fun slasher. All that being said, I'm just going to go a solid 7. Just right on the nose, a 7, no point, anything. Just a nice solid 7, a decent installment in the Texas Chainsaw franchise, and there aren't a lot of those. So,
yeah, I want to say go back. My favorite kill. I actually flipped Dean's and Eric's. By the way, I got the names mixed up, but it's the other way around. You know which ones I was talking about,
right.
And since Brother Dustin's not here, I went ahead and followed his tradition of giving the average score. But the average score of the three of us was or the four of us actually, including Dustin's, was a 7.625 for this one. So not bad at all.
No, sir.
Nope. I think I give the whole entertaining part. It's really high in my rating, I think.
Right, and that's fair. It's very fair.
This movie is entertaining as hell.
It is. So, yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
But I totally get y'all's nitpicks. I get it. Y'all got any final thoughts for right now? It's my pick for next week.
Yeah, fuck your pick. It's good in a creepy way, bastard.
See, I don't even know what pick it is.
All right. I can't remember what year it's from, honestly, but I've been trying to. I think all of us have been doing our best to like make our picks kind of random and kind of different. Everyone, says we're all about the slashers, but we don't really pick them that much. My pick next week, I'm going with There's Something Wrong with Esther. I'm going with Orphan.
Oh, God.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Well, I'll save it.
On purpose. It's on purpose, I think.
I'll save it. It's
Vera Farmiga, call me sometime. I'm beating Mike to it.
Son of a bitch. You know that's my lady. That's my lady. Even if she played a fraud in 2 movies. Anyway, please, go ahead.
Wow.
She was
great as that fraud, though.
She was. Hey, I didn't say the acting was bad.
Oh, no, she's great. I'm looking forward to Orphan. I'm giving you a warning, Brian. This movie's long as hell. It's like 2 hours. So,
it's a tough watch.
But I'm invested the whole time. It's interesting. So yeah, next week we're doing Orphan. Had a really great time reviewing Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning tonight. I'm a big fan. Heck, I did my notes the night after we dropped the last week's episode. I was so excited for it.
You did.
So yeah, we really appreciate all support, everyone. Just check us out on social media. We really appreciate it. And thank you for listening. Y'all have a good night. And just want to remind everybody to don't go